My Favorite Martian. The final transmission. Uncle Martin's spaceship had been grounded on Earth for years, and during that time, he had meticulously worked on repairing it. The process was complex and required both Martian technology and Earth ingenuity. Here's how Martin managed to get his spaceship back in working order. 1. Assessing the damage. When Martin first crash-landed on Earth, he conducted a thorough assessment of his spaceship. The impact had damaged several critical components, including the molecular integrator, the propulsion system, and the navigation controls. Using his advanced Martian tools, Martin created a detailed list of all the parts that needed repair or replacement. 2. Sourcing materials. Many of the materials needed for the repairs were not available on Earth. Martin had to get creative, using Earth equivalents and modifying them to suit his needs. He often visited junkyards, electronics stores, and even Tim's office to scavenge for parts. Tim, always eager to help, provided Martin with anything he could find, from old radios to computer chips. 3. Reverse engineering. One of the most challenging tasks was reverse engineering Earth technology to work with Martian systems. Martin spent countless hours in the garage, using his Martian intellect to adapt Earth components. He built a makeshift lab where he could test and refine his modifications. Tim often found Martin surrounded by a maze of wires, circuits, and glowing Martian devices. 4. Repairing the molecular integrator. The molecular integrator was the most critical component, responsible for the spaceship's ability to travel through space. Martin had to rebuild it from scratch, using a combination of Martian crystals and Earth semiconductors. He carefully calibrated the integrator, ensuring it could withstand the immense pressures of space travel. 5. Testing and calibration. Once the repairs were complete, Martin conducted a series of tests to ensure everything was functioning correctly. He ran simulations, checked the propulsion system, and recalibrated the navigation controls. Each test brought new challenges, but Martin's determination never wavered. 6. Final preparations. With the spaceship finally repaired, Martin made the final preparations for his departure. He double-checked every system, packed his Martian belongings, and said his goodbyes to Tim and Mrs. Brown. He also left Tim with the communicator, a small device that would allow them to stay in touch across the vast distances of space. 7. The launch. On the night of his departure, Martin activated the spaceship's systems. The garage doors opened, revealing the starry sky. With a deep breath, Martin initiated the launch sequence. The spaceship hummed to life, lifting off the ground and ascending into the night sky. As he soared through the atmosphere, Martin felt a mix of excitement and sadness, knowing he was leaving behind a world that had become like a second home. It was a typical sunny afternoon in Los Angeles, and Tim O'Hara was busy typing away at his typewriter, working on his latest article. Uncle Martin, the Martian who had become like family to Tim, was tinkering with his spaceship in the garage, hoping to finally repair the last few components needed for his journey back to Mars. Mrs. Lorelei Brown, their nosy but well-meaning landlady, was tending to her garden, humming a cheerful tune. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Detective Bill Brennan, ever suspicious of Martin, was on his usual rounds, keeping a close eye on the neighborhood. As Tim paused to stretch, he heard a loud crash from the garage. Rushing over, he found Uncle Martin standing amidst a cloud of smoke, looking both triumphant and slightly singed. "Tim, I did it!" Martin exclaimed, holding up a small, glowing device. "I finally repaired the molecular integrator. I can go home." Tim's heart sank. He knew this day would come, but he wasn't ready to say goodbye to his Martian friend. "That's great, Uncle Martin," he said, forcing a smile. "But when do you have to leave?" Martin's expression softened. "I have to leave tonight, Tim. The planetary alignment is perfect, and I can't miss this opportunity." As the sun set, the small group gathered in the garage for a farewell dinner. Mrs. Brown, oblivious to Martin's true identity, had prepared a feast, thinking it was just another one of Tim's eccentric parties. Lieutenant Brennan, invited out of courtesy, kept a watchful eye on Martin, still convinced there was something odd about him. After dinner, Martin pulled Tim aside. "Tim, I want you to have this," he said, handing him a small, Martian device. "It's a communicator. If you ever need me, just press this button, and I'll come back." Tim nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I'll miss you, Uncle Martin." As the clock struck midnight, Martin activated his spaceship. The garage doors opened, revealing the starry sky. Mrs. Brown and Lieutenant Brennan watched in awe.